Let's get right into it, shall we? Exhibit A, Aaron Schwartz. This may be a household name for some of you budding DD students whom, after seeing the workload of, I feel nothing but sympathy for. Aaron Schwartz was a computer programmer almost right from the time he was born. He went on to astound the world at just age 12 when he invented the Info Network, an online encyclopedia that earned him the Arsa Digita Award. Exhibit B is someone I personally appreciate more, since I can barely use Excel, let alone code an entire website, Vincent van Gogh. Even if you couldn't care less about art, you've heard the name and seen The Starry Night. Even as a kid, Van Gogh was thought to be a sensible, solemn artist who later honed his skills with workshops and private tutors before becoming one of the most notable painters in history. What these two icons have in common is that society often regard them as child prodigies. And true, they revolutionized their fields and produced works that have set benchmarks for a millennia to come. I, however, don't want to talk about why child prodigies are so great. I actually want to talk about why a lot of them fail. Backwards, I know, Taylor Swift said it first, we love an anti-hero, am I right? Anyway, it is hard for us to undo the mindset we have that constantly praises child prodigies. We seem to be enamored by everything they project. What makes them so successful? Well, first and foremost, they are exceptionally skilled, far beyond what we expect of them at their age, with these innate talents that make them incomparable to the common man. Just in a flash, they can gain swarms of attention that screams, "Look at this child who can play an 8-string guitar better than you ever could." And sure, to some degree, these children were born gifted. But they couple this gift with a rigorous work ethic that pushes them past their limits and into unparalleled levels of eliteness. But what happens when this elite status runs out? How long does it really last for? Child prodigies are one thing, but even the classic, common, gifted kid has to suffer the consequences of constantly being on a pedestal. I know, no one wants to hear a talented kid talk about how difficult it is to be talented. That is self-centered and out of touch, and also part of the reason why there's so much pressure on these children who perhaps grew up faster than they ever wanted to. You see, when you're that persistently good at something, it becomes your entire identity. Your self-worth is defined by it. Now just imagine the self-doubt and anxiety that's experienced by these children when they begin to question whether they really are all that great. It's not just that, these kids are also often exploited for their talents. I mean, we've seen it in reality TV shows and pageants where the media squeeze every last bit of fame and money out of this child. Even in home settings, as an Asian student myself, I know that the strict parent stereotype rings true in a lot of my peers. And we can laugh about it and make jokes, but the fact of the matter remains that that kind of pressure takes its toll somewhere. And more often than not, it falls on the child themselves. It's funny because I can see a similar mindset be reflected in schools nowadays as colleges become increasingly competitive, as if performing high is the only way to perform. With 7s and 8s or nothing, right? And I know it's not just me, because oh my God, the number of times I've heard "I'm in Spain, but the S is silent" is unfathomable, trust me. But can't you see? We keep making these jokes to mask the fact that we're all just struggling to keep up. As we're becoming more open as a society, we can see that it is this mindset that leads to severe burnout and mental illness. Lack of self-esteem, lack of sleep, trust issues, the list goes on. The Scientific American comments that child prodigies are more at risk of developing what's called the false self, where they distort their personalities so much out of sheer trauma that they become unrecognizable to their past. Medical News then adds on to this by saying, amongst high levels of anxiety and major depressive disorder, gifted children are more likely to develop imposter syndrome as they age later in life. Now, if all of this can culminate in a child with a barely formed brain, how can we be so praising of it? Remember Aaron Schwartz and Vincent van Gogh? There was something I forgot to mention about them, something that made them similar, aside from both being change makers and prodigies. Both of these remarkable people ended up taking their own lives. Aaron Schwartz hung himself when he was just 26, and Van Gogh shot himself at 37. When I was a kid, I looked up to gifted kids and child prodigies alike. Who wouldn't, right? Everyone wants to be someone special. I was told that I was smart. So I drilled the idea into my head that if I wanted to succeed in life, I had to not just meet expectations, but exceed them. I wanted to be a writer back then, so I'd obsess over researching the world's youngest authors. I'd look into what they'd write about, how long their books were, how old were they when they got published, and I kept on spiraling until it got to the point where I didn't even enjoy writing anymore. I just wanted to be good at something because I believed I had to be. This mindset followed me as I grew up. There are times in my life I recall feeling so sick with pressure and exhaustion that I would just break down, throw up, and call it a day. Life got more challenging, but my expectations for myself remained the same, unattainable. This is only my story. I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by people who are in fact in this audience, who manage to ground and support me, and I credit them for being reasons why I come out of spirals like these. But even still, I can see it. I can see the feeling of not feeling good enough. I can see the lack of self-worth. I see it in my friends. I can see it in my peers. I want you to think now. Have you ever felt like you were on a hamster wheel for so long you forgot how to stop? Have you ever pushed yourself so hard that you went past the point of being proud of yourself, but from being one step away from giving up entirely? I'm not saying we should quit ambition. Of course not. We should work hard and aim high. It's how we pursue our passions and achieve our goals. But what I am saying is that we should quit romanticizing unrealistic expectations imposed on people who aren't even old enough to decide not to themselves. Burnout is real. Managing our ideals is the only way we can protect ourselves and the people we care about from being hurt by self-destructive tendencies. And I know not all of us can be born with these incredible talents, even though we want to be. But basketballers don't come out of the womb wearing Air Jordans and doing layups, right? They have to learn how to dribble before becoming world class. Similarly, we can improve. So yes, appreciate child prodigies. But remember that we are all human. You are human. It's okay to have limitations and boundaries. We can all be more successful once we learn to respect them and admire one another for who we are on the inside. Thank you.